So you're thinking about running, but not sure how to take the first step. My name is Brian Patterson, and I'm here to help. Welcome to Brian's Run Pod. Hey there, fellow runners, and welcome back to Brian's Run Pod. I'm your host, Brian, and today we're diving into a second instalment of my chat with an incredible Paul. Now, let me tell you, Paul's no ordinary runner. He's just crossed the finish line of his 250 park run, and can you believe it, as always, I'm stoked to bring you stories from our local running community, and Paul's journey is nothing short of inspiring. In this episode, we'll be unpacking Paul's achievement and digging deep into what it means to reach such an impressive milestone. So lace up your running shoes, grab your water bottle, and let's hit the pavement together as we explore the passion and dedication behind Paul's remarkable feat.
And you've done 250 of them.
Yeah, 251, but who's counting now?
Oh,
so,
right.
yeah. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed doing parkrun over the years.
Yeah.
You know, I used to, for a long period, I used to run there and then run it and then run home afterwards from Bushy. And then there was a period of time where I pushed my daughter around in a running buggy. But it's funny to look back at that now. You know, I've run
she's now running it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. She's running it now in her own right. That's right. And I ran it. I think I might have said that Mo Farah's only run it once.
Oh.
And I ran it on the same day as Mo Farah. So I can say that I finished sort of 30 places behind Mo Farah in a park run, which is quite a nice thing to be able to say. So, yeah.
So the other park run you did, well, local to us is Crane Park.
Yeah.
So, and do you prefer that one? I mean, I know it's a very different route.
Yeah, I think, I probably do really. But the reason I prefer it now is because it allows me to do it with my family more simply, and I quite like this sort of smaller sense of community, the scale of it. I like the route. I like the fact you can get up there very straightforwardly from where we live. The people there are really friendly, and I've become a bit more involved. I suppose I've volunteered more since I've been going to Crane as well. So I did a bit of volunteering at Bushy, but I've started to really quite enjoy just doing things like the finish token and doing a marshalling role now and again, and using it as a way of sort of demonstrating to my children that they can get involved in volunteering as well. And, the pleasure that can come from watching other people enjoy themselves is quite nice.
Do you think the success of parkrun is because the event doesn't take itself too seriously as a running event? Or
so we're getting interesting territory there, because obviously there's been quite a lot of controversy recently around some of the stats and things being taken off the website.
Right. No, I didn't know that.
So there's a lot of coverage at the moment around the fact that parkrun's removed some of the stats that people relied on for their own enjoyment from the run. So some people are very statistically driven. I think particularly people who may be autistic or are maybe quite obsessional in their nature.
Yeah.
So it's caused a bit of an ongoing debate at the moment for the last couple of months, and some of the natives are a little bit restless, which I find a bit unfortunate, because I think a lot of the success from parkrun comes from the fact that people love that sense of community.
Yeah.
And what's going on centrally shouldn't detract from what people enjoy locally.
Right.
So, I still just enjoy going there on a Saturday morning and enjoying it for what it is. And I think a lot of other people do. The difficult thing is that some people, really enjoy that thing of being up against each other and seeing what the record is for that particular park run, because runners are in their nature quite interested in statistics and, who did what and when. So I think you're right. I think a lot of the success has come from it being fairly informal, but I think a lot of the success has also come from the ability to scale it and, create something that's quite uniform in a lot of ways, with its own sort of individual personality, depending on where the event is. So,
Well, that's a shame that it has become a little bit controversial. I suppose then again, it's become so massive. I mean, in terms of, throughout the world, it's been so successful.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought, famous app is Strava, which is obviously, if you wanted to look up your stats and you can compare whatever, that's probably an ideal sort of metric,
Yeah.
on the web that you can do that. But it's a shame because, I mean, I think originally Paul sort of started up because he was injured and he had a bunch of friends and he wanted to go running and he was frustrated that he couldn't go running because he was injured.
Yeah.
and it helped his mental health as well. So
I can remember it really fondly actually that, because we used to finish and Paul, used to give his time. We'd all used to finish and he used to be sat on his boot with a clipboard and he used to write down your name. You used to go up with a little round circular tag, hand your tag over, he'd write your name, and that was the way the results were processed each week, which obviously isn't sustainable. And I think one of the beautiful things about parkrun is the way they have scaled it up into so many different locations and created systems that have allowed them to do it very easily, and that the fact that people all around the world are getting their result texted to them or emailed to them on a Saturday morning at 10:30, having finished the run an hour earlier, is astounding, to be honest with you. You know, and I think the sort of the inclusive nature of it is brilliant. Actually, in terms of the fact you can turn up and there's people of all shapes and sizes and abilities, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy about it. The fact that you can see people from different walks of life who've all turned up to do the same thing on a Saturday morning. Last week I was helping out. I was doing the finishing tokens up at Crane actually, and there were a couple of people that arrived and it was their first time, and they were
great.
They were first timers, and they were just so enthusiastic and so keen to find out about how you finished and where you finished and what happened. And it was lovely to see their faces when they actually finished the run. So yeah.
And also, I mean, I know Crane Park is like you said, it's a great venue for running because you just run within this kind of enclosed sort of, I don't know, want of a better word, like a forest type of place, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you finish at a shot tower. Yeah. And there's a lot of history behind that. Yeah. So I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
It's got a nice personality to it, that particular one. And I think it's starting to get slightly busier again now, but certainly post-pandemic, the numbers have been relatively low. I think pre-pandemic it was up to probably 250, and now it's starting to get up, closer to 200 again, which is a nice size of run, really. I think they've moved the course slightly, so the start is slightly further away from the main road than it was previously, which I think some people find a bit off-putting, but I find the route really quite nice, in terms of just the undulation that's there. So
yes, that's true.
So I'm up to 100 there, and I've done 100 at Bushy as well. So
right, brilliant. Any other interesting places that you've done parkrun? I mean, have you done it in your?
Yeah, so I've done a lot. I do quite a lot down at Torbay, which is where I hail from. So there's one there in the Velodrome. I've not done any overseas. I've quite enjoyed doing quite a lot up in the northwest of England. So we've got family in Bolton. Yeah. So I've done, Pennington Flash, Worsley Woods, Bolton itself. So they're all quite entertaining. They're quite undulating and hilly in their nature. I really enjoyed doing the one down at Poole, down on the south coast, because that's a very fast, flat, airy run. That was good fun.
Quite windy or
not too bad, but good feel to it. A sizable run. Yeah. Nice, friendly people there. And Cardiff was another good one as well, which I did last year. Again, that's sort of out and back in terms of the way it's set up, but it's quite a nice route down the River Taff. So, yeah. Oh, right. If you're doing a city break in Cardiff, and I'd recommend that one.
Yeah. So is that near the castle? Or?
Yeah, not too far.
So one of our most downloaded episodes is the Couch to 5K. So what would, let's say, for someone who's a newbie to running, I know we've kind of given a few hints as to what people should look for. If they're new to running and they want to, do their first 5K or first park run, what advice would you give them?
I think the big thing is not to take it too seriously. When you start off, and to give it time, really. Because it does take time to get used to your body. Everyone's body, each individual body is different.
Yeah.
As my spinning instructor told me this morning, told everybody this morning, and that's right, you know.
Yeah.
And it will take time to, if you're just starting, to feel comfortable with what you're doing and to see that sense of improvement. So, you know, I would say don't take it too seriously. Focus a bit on time on feet, you know, rather than distance. I think that's really quite a good strategy. And just get out, you know, really. And, you know, if you have to walk, you have to walk for a period of time.
Yeah.
But don't let that put you off.
Yeah.
You know, keep going. I think the other thing is just have a bit of structure with it. So work out which days you're going to run. You know, get your kit out, get your kit ready. So, you know, you haven't got an excuse. I always prefer running in the morning. The reason I prefer running in the morning is, one, because it gets my endorphins up, and I find that really helps with my mental health. But also because there's a number of other things that can happen during the day that can derail you, you know, whether it's an extra meeting or a prolonged meeting or trains delayed or whatever else it might be. You know, the percentage likelihood of you actually doing your exercise sort of lessens as the day goes on, I find.
Yeah.
And one of the worst you can possibly do when you come back in from a day at work is sit on the settee.
Yes.
You know? There were times, you know, when I had running clubs, for example, where I'd come in, you know, I'd be conscious that I needed a fairly fast turnaround, and I'd sit down on the settee, and it was fairly dreadful just trying to get myself back up and get my kit on and get out the door on a cold February evening for a run. So, yeah, I'd always encourage people, you know, to make sure they schedule the time, and, you know, I'd encourage them to do it earlier in the day if they can. But the most important thing is that, you know, you do get out and do it, really. So, yeah.
I mean, I was reading on the website about someone who's saying that think of your day as having, or if you could put a number to it, is that you've got 100 units of energy.
Yeah.
And then throughout, like you said, throughout that day, you have various demands on that energy.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the day, you may think of only 10 units of energy to do that run.
Yeah.
So whereas, let's say at the beginning of the day, you know, like you said, going out first thing, you're kind of, it's like you're kickstarting the whole day, sort of thing. And then you've got, like you said, you help sort of kickstart those endorphins and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, you know, I do really believe in that exercising early in the day really helps the rest of your day. And, you know, without going into too much detail, there was a period of life where I wasn't particularly well, actually. I was burnt out, and I kept running in the evening, and then it becomes counterproductive. Exercise, actually, you know, there's a lot of talk about the benefit of exercise.
Right.
But if you're tired, it's a stressor, and it's another stressor that plays into that stress. So
it's a balance.
Yeah, there's a balance there. I think, you know, without doubt, exercise is a really important part of keeping yourself mentally well. But you have to be aware of that, you know, when it plays into creating a situation where you're worn out, that's not really good for anybody. So, yeah, that's the other thing to be aware of, really. I think when you start out is to think a little bit about that in terms of how you build over a period of time, you know. So,
and have we had any kind of major injuries, you know, on that, or have they?
No, I've been very lucky with running injuries. So, and I have to say, there's probably only one time in my life where I became very concerned, and that was when I ran my third marathon, and I ended up running it with a support around my leg because basically the mileage took its toll, and I got my mileage, you know, right up to 50 odd miles a week, but it was touch and go, sort of maybe 5 weeks out, and that's the only time where I've sort of become concerned. And probably at that point, I started to wonder about whether it was sustainable longer term in terms of the amount of running that I was doing. And actually, you know, in my later years, I have started to mix things up a lot more. So I do stuff in the gym, I do spinning, I do quite a lot of sort of boot camp type exercise classes, which I really enjoy. I did a class called Fight Club, which was boxing related. So lots of different things, which are all good exercise, but just mix things up really. And, quite a lot more resistance work, which I was not a huge fan of really up until 10 years ago, but now I quite enjoy doing. So
Yeah, because I know when I interviewed Stuart Hayes, the Olympic triathlete, I mean, I know he said when I first knew him, he wished he had more strength exercises that were specific to his sport.
Yeah.
He was kind of one of the, well, not quite so much the pioneers, pioneering, of triathlon, but he felt that it wasn't at a time where there was enough sort of like resource in terms of strength exercises for someone like doing triathlon or even running or something like that. I mean, I suppose, runners have been doing it all sorts for a long time, but, you've got to think of, it's not just about the running and pounding the pavement. Is also, because that's going through quite a lot of stress, you need to have the strength exercises along with it. So
and somebody
and
told
the variety,
me,
like you said.
One other thing that I started to do actually when I was doing my longer runs was that where there was grass alongside the pavement, I'd run on the grass solely to reduce the impact on
your knees.
On my knees, yeah. That was a little thing that someone told me, because that reduces shin splints as well. Yeah. So where you've got that kind of smooth grass, as it were, without ruts, that's quite a good little thing to look at, where you can find things that are a little bit easier on the feet. So.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. Any other advice that you would give to people, who are just sort of starting out?
No, I do think clubs are brilliant. If you can find a good sociable club, and I think most clubs now, are not elite in their approach. They understand they've got a role to play. Yeah. A lot of them run Couch to 5K courses themselves, actually. Yeah. I know Stragglers does, and I think the Bearcat does as well.
That's right.
So they are very inclusive in their approach. So if you can find, a good club like that and not to feel shy going. I mean, I know it can be difficult meeting new people, but to go along and actually, suss it out and have a conversation and just go, really. I think that's a really good thing to do. Parkrun, brilliant. Again, that's really inclusive. You haven't got to go there and worry about the fact you're going to be last because they have a tail walker. So you can walk the parkrun. So that's a really great place to go and enjoy yourself and just get a feel for running with a group, and you'll get to know people in the running community there. And you can start to create a bit of a triangle potentially with clubs and other races that you run, because you'll start to know faces and people that you've seen elsewhere. So I'd really recommend, doing that.
Yeah.
And probably just get, if you can get involved and actually do a bit of volunteering there, again, you'll get to know.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You'll get to know the people at the actual event, and then you'll start to really feel part of the community there. So, I mean, they're all, little pieces of advice. And the other thing is, not to worry about doing something like run walking. So that thing of running 2 lampposts and then walking 1, or, that again is a really good way of just getting your heart going and starting to build, really. So,
because I always keep recounting this story. I think my daughter is sick of me saying this, but she said, because she started doing that Couch to 5K, and she found the immediate benefits was just like, she's able to run for the bus without feeling completely,
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. So, and I think the other thing is if you can find somewhere that's scenic to run in, that makes a big difference, as we've already touched on. So I've got a couple of pictures actually behind you there, Brian, of Bushy Park, which were taken when I was running. So they were taken during lockdown, one very frosty morning, and I literally stopped running, got my phone out and took those 2 pictures. And, they're fairly indicative of the sort of scenes you can get when you've got somewhere beautiful with, lovely, crisp autumnal or spring conditions, really. So if you can find that sort of route that, I think the interesting thing is that the seasons change the look of a route as well, so it might look one way in March, but it certainly doesn't look that way in, mid-October. So,
That's right. I mean, on that thing about the clubs, I was just thinking that even your local running shop, because I know I interviewed someone at the running shop in Teddington, the name escapes me, and they do a running club on a Tuesday night. But, anyway, wherever you are in whether you're listening to this podcast or whatever, so in the world, then they may have a local running shop.
Yeah.
And they may do a running group on a particular night.
I think running communities is the big thing with these shops. They call them running communities
And they have guest speakers, and they may have, because probably at the end of the day, they want to sell you shoes and whatever, but they'll have the people coming in from the various factories sort of like, helping or giving you sort of some kind of informed choice as to, or education about what's out there.
So that's a good, it's a good place to look as well, actually. So,
good. Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Paul, for coming onto the podcast. And I know John, our friend, has been saying, you must get Paul onto the podcast or whatever. But I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything else you want to add to what we've said already?
No, I just, I hope everyone listening, gets a sense of enjoyment from their running, really, and, understands that it can play a really huge part in your life. So, yeah. Yeah,
in terms of the sort of mental health as well as the physical health as well.
Yeah.
So, So, anyway, what we might do with this particular podcast is we'll probably split it into two. There's one last thing there's a couple of things I'm going to do, is I wanted to ask you, do you have a sporting hero?
A sporting hero?
Now, it could be your favourite player from your favourite football club, or it could be, a runner or something like that.
Well, I've always found Mo Farah very inspiring, particularly the London Olympics, 2012. So, he's a big inspiration to me, I think, from a running perspective. So,
And he kind of started quite humble beginnings, because I think he went to school quite locally around here.
Yeah.
I think in Feltham or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and, he's achieved great things.
Yeah, so, incredible. So, I think he's somebody who has always stood out to me in terms of, the ability to perform, really. So, in athletic terms. So,
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Paul, for coming on the podcast. As I said, we'll probably split the podcast into two. So you'll be listening to Paul over a couple of weeks. But again, thanks very much.
Lovely. Thank you, Brian.
And that's a wrap for another exhilarating episode of Brian's Run Pod. Thanks for tuning in, folks. As always, we've got your back with all things running. And next week, get ready for some awesome beginner hints and tips to kickstart your running journey. Oh, and before we sign off, exciting news. We're now available on YouTube. So whether you're pounding the pavement or chilling at home, you can catch us there too. Plus, we have a new feature on the podcast. You can now send me a message. Yep, you heard it right. Brian's Run Pod has become interactive with the audience. If you look at the top of the episode description, tap on send us a text message. You can tell me what you think of the episode, or alternatively, what you would like covered. If you're lucky, I might even read them out on the podcast. Hey, if you want to keep up with the latest updates, behind the scenes fun, and even some exclusive content, make sure to follow me on social media. You can find me on Twitter, or should I say X, at Brian's Run Pod. We've also just launched a shiny new Facebook page. Simply search for Brian's Run Pod and give us a like. And don't forget to hop on over to Instagram, where you can catch all our visual adventures at Brian's Run Pod. For those of you who love diving deep into the episodes, head over to our website, www.briansrunpod.co.uk, and there you'll find detailed show notes, handy chapter markers, make it too easy to navigate through our favourite discussions. Please leave a review, as it will always help others find this podcast. Music is by Happy Days by Stock Audio, not forgetting artwork by Alice Patterson. Till next week, thanks again for listening.